would like to welcome everyone to the City Commission Business Meeting for Monday, February 17th, 2020. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cunningham. Commissioner Hess.
Here.
Commissioner Knott. Here. Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Commissioner Urban.
Here.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Is there a motion to excuse Commissioner Cunningham?
So moved. Support.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right. The next thing on our agenda is our opening ceremony. Our opening ceremony will include an invocation and then a Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to introduce the individual who will be doing our invocation tonight. His name is Dr. Pradeep Sugadeo, and he's a practicing Hindu Purohi, a religious leader and officiant. He has conducted Hindu religious functions and sacraments for over 40 years in the United States and Canada. He is actively involved in the religious functions at the Indo-American Cultural Center just south of the airport in Portage. He was invited to offer the invocation at the Michigan State Senate last December. In addition to his religious studies, he has a PhD in aerospace engineering. So if we could all please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hari Om, Namaste. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyam Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaistusthuvansastanubhirvyashema devahitam yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vruddhashavaha Swasti nः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. O ye gods, may we hear with our ears what is auspicious. O wonderful ones, may we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we live the entire length of our allotted life, hale and hearty, offering our praises unto thee. May Indra, the king of gods, the ancient and the famous, Pushan, the sun, the all-knowing, and Vayu, the lord of swift motion, who saves us from all harm, and Brihaspati, the guru of gods, who protects the spiritual wealth in us, bless us with the intellectual strength to understand the scriptures and the heroic heart to follow their teachings. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May He protect us both. May He bless us with the bliss of knowledge. Let us exert together. May what we study be well studied. May we not hate each other or quarrel with each other. And finally, for the entire mankind, this is the prayer for the goodwill and for the good health of the entire mankind. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. May everybody be happy. May everybody be free of disease, physical afflictions. May everyone experience good fortune. May they never have to face sorrow. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Tvam dhanyam vadami. Thank you very much.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, you have in front of you the agenda for tonight's business meeting. Are there any changes? Seeing no requests, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to an item that's on the consent agenda? Consent agenda is any item under F on our agenda. If so, you need to ask for that item to be moved to the regular agenda. Are there any requests? Seeing none. Next item is communications. Are there any communications? Deputy City Manager Moore.
No communications, Mayor.
Thanks so much. Next is the consent agenda, items under F. Deputy City Manager.
The consent agenda tonight, first item, approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Hoffman Brothers in the amount of $120,000, $289.45 for completion of the Rose Street project. Approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Tree Works, Inc. for neighborhood tree maintenance in the amount of $179,900. Approval of a contract supplemental with subsequent change order with GRO America for the cleaning and inspection of the Axtell Creek culverts in the amount of $560,768.50. Adoption of a resolution approving a brownfield plan for a redevelopment project located at 708, 714, 718, and 720 North Burdick Street. Adoption of a resolution approving a request from Western Michigan University for a liquor license at Heritage Hall. Adoption of a resolution setting the salaries for City Commission appointees for 2020. Approval of a grant to the Kalamazoo Edison Neighborhood Association in the amount of $100,000 to be used to purchase a building in support of a mixed-use project. Approval of bylaws for the Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo Organizing Committee. Approval of the appointment of Bobby Glasser to the Environmental Concerns Committee for a term expiring on January 1st, 2023. Approval of the appointment and assignment of city commissioners to various committees, boards, and commissions. Approval of appointment of Mayor David Anderson and the reappointment of City Manager James Ritzema to the Kalamazoo County Consolidated Dispatch Authority Governing Board of Directors, with Public Safety Chief Carrie Ann Thomas and Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain as alternates. And approval of the reappointment of Public Safety Chief Carrie Ann Thomas to the Kalamazoo County Consolidated Dispatch Technical Advisory Committee with Captain Christopher Franks as an alternate. These appointments will expire on November 8, 2021. Approval of the purchase of a portion of the property at 1157 Bank Street for the realignment of Bank Street that is part of the Farmers Market Improvement Project. Approval of the minutes from the City Commission meeting on February 3rd, 2020. Those are the consent agenda items for tonight.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 through 13 and authorize the Deputy City Manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So move.
Made by Commissioner Urban. Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Hess. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes, but I need to request an abstention on item F5. because of a conflict of interest, it's the building that I manage at Western, so.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
and Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioners. Items on the consent agenda are approved. Next are items on the regular agenda. Deputy City Manager.
Item number 1, adoption of an ordinance to amend Section 38-32 of the Kalamazoo City Code to change the rates charged for water service.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item? If so, please come to the podium, give your name, and whether you live in the city. You'll have 4 minutes to make your comments. See no one. There's a motion to adopt the ordinance. Commissioners, would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Pradel, support by Commissioner Knott. Is there any discussion? All right, see no discussion. I just want to make it clear that we had a special meeting over at the water reclamation plant. I think that was in, I can't remember now, is that November? Yeah, where we talked about the rate change. It was focused specifically on these 2 items, and we have had extensive discussions since that time. So this is, it's not a surprise that it's on our agenda. It was coming our way. This is one of the actions that the City Commission takes every year related to rates for water and sewer. More comments now?
Mayor, yes. I would like perhaps some comment from Deputy City Manager regarding the availability of extra resources for those who are unable to pay the increased water rates.
I'd like to ask Deputy Director Baker to come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commission. Could I please ask the City Commissioner to repeat the question? I didn't quite hear the very end of it.
I would just like you to address the means that citizens might have who will be unable to pay the increased water rates.
Well, you know, that is a challenging question. Certainly demographics are a concern for us. It's something that we look at when we look at our budgets. We also look at comparable utility rates amongst other communities of our size. Right now, we don't have a program in place that is congruent with state law in terms of that. Essentially, ratepayers is a commodity. Ratepayers pay for what they use. So essentially, for us to take funds from those dollars and to kind of smooth things over, if you will, essentially that's an illegal act. There are other programs that get to what you're discussing, and we have been researching some of those. I'll tell you probably the first thing that a citizen can do to combat a high bill or high water usage is to first look at leaks and look at their usage. We've done a lot of comparison for typical families. We've run analysis with approximately 50 cubic meters per billing period. We've also run analysis on approximately 70 cubic meters per billing period. Now, I'll tell you, most typical homes are somewhere between 30 and 45 cubic meters of water usage. So our estimates are pretty conservative. We're really kind of giving the benefit of the doubt. If somebody comes in with a bill that's, say, 100 cubic meters, we really want to question where that water came from in terms of, are there leaks? One of the biggest culprit for leaks is the toilet. And that can happen without you seeing it or understanding that it's happened. One of the things that we tell customers to do is add a drop of, say, blue or yellow food coloring into the back tank, and that you should not see anything in the bowl below, because that can just constantly, really dollars down the drain, if you will, because it's happening, it's silent. Folks don't understand that's going on. if there are concerns with your bill in terms of high usage, you think there's leaks, give us a call. We might be able to help pinpoint your leaks. Now, we're not responsible for leaks inside the home. Let me be clear with that. But we can help talk to citizens and help kind of guide them. Another program that we did a few years ago, I don't think we're doing that this year, but we have in the past partnered with Consumers Energy for water efficiency programs. Essentially, if you go through your utility provider, Consumers Energy, and sign up for like an energy audit of the home or something like that, you could receive then through Consumers low-flow fixtures and some other devices that help you conserve water usage. And I would anticipate or encourage folks to look at low-flow fixtures if they have a concern with rates.
Thank you, Director Baker.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pradel.
I was wondering if you would be willing to just provide kind of cliff notes, if you will, in terms of major capital improvements that people might be able to anticipate that's possible because of the rate increase.
Yeah, certainly. It's a great question. I will kind of start out that response by reminding everybody that there's two actions tonight. One is drinking water rate increases. The other action is wastewater rate increases. Those both come together on your bill, and essentially it's one bill from the city for water and wastewater. These are two different ordinances. So first, I'll kind of address the drinking water major projects, if you will. We've got PFAS response projects related to extending municipal water service. That's new water mains going in the ground. That's happening out in Cooper Township. That's happening out in Richland Township. We also have projects in the city of Kalamazoo, two big projects this year. That's Cork Street and Oakland Drive, where we're replacing cast iron water main that is, has a history of main breaks, and we're digging the road up. So those are two major projects in the city. Another major project that's in the city of Kalamazoo, also in Eastwood neighborhood, Kalamazoo Township, lead service replacements. We've been on the pace of 500 lead service replacements per year. This year, we anticipate to award approximately 1,350 lead service replacements. And then we also have a lot of treatment enhancements that are going on at the individual treatment plants, if you will. Those are happening all throughout the city and out in the township areas as well. We're essentially automating the hydraulics and chemical feed systems at those treatment plants. So it's a lot of work. It's work that covers a lot of areas, both in city and out city. And it's a lot of work that's going to help to address immediate concerns that the community has had or is having in terms of PFAS, lead, and water quality.
Thank you, Director Baker. Any other questions, Director Baker? Oh, one other question on the water side. What's the city's plans as it relates to smart meters?
We have currently we're in the pilot stage and attrition stage of that program. So if you can remember back to the January 13th meeting that we had on the water utility, you saw in out years 2022 and 2023, $8 million. Starting in 2022, that was where we're going to really ramp up that smart meter program. So through attrition, what that means is right now any meter replacement that has to happen or any new meter that goes in is a smart meter. And that meters have essentially looks like a normal water meter. It's got wires that go to a unit that sits outside the home. That unit that sits outside the home radio broadcasts to us information concerning usage. Once we get that program completely in place, we'll start to roll out portals that citizens can use to really be able to see their usage in real time, to monitor usage. We also have the ability to detect leaks or high usage or usage excursions, which we can alert customers to, potentially saving from property damage or a high bill. So the smart meter program is a really great program, not only for the utility, but for our customers as well. From the utility perspective, We had an aging meter system, many meters out there that are well beyond 25 years or older. We also had meters that were essentially plastic housing meters that when they would freeze, they would cause the entire meter to fail. So this is us kind of incorporating a whole-scale meter replacement and doing it with the best technology available at our time, which guides us to that smart meter program.
Thank you, Director Baker.
Thank you.
Is there any, Chris Cradle?
Yeah, I was just wondering as well, do you mind sharing with everybody, I know, the typical household is going to look at about $14 to $15 per quarter on their bill increase, just with both combined water and sewer increase with this, and all the capital improvements that are coming with that as well. But, where does that lie within, other rates throughout the state? Are we particularly high compared to others in the state? Are we lower, somewhere in the middle? Just, I think it'd be helpful for people to know that as well.
Yeah, so this is information that we shared with the commission during our January 13th work session, and we compare to like utilities, say City of Battle Creek, City of Grand Rapids, City of Jackson, a lot of communities on the east side. Generally, we're comparing to Michigan municipalities that are generally at or above 50,000, and then certainly like the Grand Rapids, they're way above that. So we're essentially trying to compare. There is no exact same comparison to Kalamazoo, but we're trying to make those comparisons to other larger utilities. And when we make those comparisons, depending on in-city or out-city, Kalamazoo is essentially always towards the lower end of that spectrum. In one of the comparisons, I think it was inside city wastewater rates, we went from dead last being the cheapest in the state to like the third cheapest in the state. So even when we implement these changes that are for you, ahead of you for consideration, we're not making a major change. We're still at the lower end of all peer Michigan utilities. One additional comment to that is that a lot of what we're going through in terms of infrastructure needs is not unique to Kalamazoo. All these other Michigan utilities also deal with the same lead copper rule changes that we're dealing with. There's communities out there that are also dealing with PFAS contamination. And a lot of Michigan's industrial core cities like Kalamazoo are also dealing with cast iron pipe that dates back from the early 1900s. So as we invest in our infrastructure, we're doing that in stride with other Michigan communities as well. I don't see a community out there that is essentially not investing. They're investing similarly as Kalamazoo is, and we expect our rates to continue to be extremely comparable and essentially continue to be on that lower end of that spectrum.
Just had one more question for you, sorry. So last question, if you could just pick maybe one or two things that you're particularly proud of that the city is accomplishing in this next budget year from this, made possible, say, by this rate increase, or just things that were already on the docket to happen, what would you say you'd be most proud of?
It's hard to pick any specific project or something like that. I'd say, the city's continued dedication to water quality is something that our staff were extremely dedicated to, and that we're, extremely proud to have that support from the city on it. Ahead of Michigan's lead copper law, which, went into effect in 2018, specific criteria within that law called for lead service replacements to occur at a rate of 5% per year, essentially, get your system done in 20 years. Kalamazoo committed to that in 2017. And that's, something that we're going to continue to commit to, even with that state law in place. We're already doing that. The ability for the community to come together and come up with some solutions to PFAS and implement those solutions, to have the city commission support for that, not requiring us to go to court to figure out what we're going to do. Essentially, hey, we've got a plan, we're going to implement it, let's get going. That's something that, Kalamazoo is head and shoulders above many, many other communities. That's something that we're all extremely proud to be a part of. And just the, continued service day in and day out of our citizens. We take a lot of pride in that. That's something that all of our staff really values and continues. That's why we come to work every day. We really value that. We really are committed to that, to be here to be able to serve the citizens, and we look forward to continuing that well into the future.
Thank you, Director Baker. Are there any more questions from the commission? Hearing no more discussion, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Knott. Yes. Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Next item, please.
Item number 2 of the regular agenda requests adoption of an ordinance to amend Section 28-73 of the Kalamazoo City Code to change the rates charged for wastewater services.
Thank you so much. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item, please come to the podium, give your name, and whether you live in the city, you'll have 4 minutes to make your comments. And this item is the change in rates charged for wastewater service. So if that's what you're talking about, now is the time. Go ahead.
Hi, Martin Clem, resident of Edison neighborhood. Forgive me if this was covered at the January meeting. When news of this went out into the city, there was a change.org petition started, with the point being, and again, this may have been addressed, so forgive me for being out of the loop. The concern was that there are businesses downtown in the city that are getting subsidized rates on sewer, in this case. I should have stood up before, also was a water concern. Could that be addressed? Is that in fact true? And if it is true, I'm not a fan of that. It seems like the businesses should be losing their subsidy before we're being asked as citizens to make up the difference. So that's all.
Thank you.
Nice.
Is there, yeah, if you want to sign in after, just so the clerk knows. Thank you.
There's a sign sheet right there.
Appreciate that. Anyone else in the audience who'd like to comment on this item? Seeing no one else, Commissioners, the recommended action is to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
Support.
Made by Commissioner Knott, supported by Commissioner Urban. Right. Discussion. Maybe now would be a good time then. I didn't see anybody right off the bat. Director Baker, do you mind coming back up and responding to that question?
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. I'm not keenly aware, nor have I seen the language presented in the change.org petition. I've not seen that, so I can't speak directly to that. However, I can tell you within your packets is the proposed wastewater ordinance. There's all sorts of charges in there. There's by meter size. There's all the way getting into contract customers for what we call quantity and quality loading. And not that anybody has done the homework, but if you then open the 2019 ordinance and compared every single one of those lines, you would see that across the board there are increases. So essentially, there is no group that has been given a special rate or a subsidy that's not supported by those loading allocations, cost distribution studies that were presented in that rate study. I did personally spend some time with a local reporter talking about some of these issues. There was an article in MLive that went into some of the details on our customer classes and some of those rate charges. And I'll tell you, when you get into the industrial customers such as graphics and Pfizer, it becomes a little complicated in that we're charging them both for flow, that's what goes down the drain through the pipes, and then also what we call quality. So we measure them on BOD, which is a essentially biochemical oxygen demand. That's in reference to the organic strength of that waste stream. And it's essentially a measurement of how much work and oxygen that we're going to have to pump into that process to effectuate that treatment. We also measure them in total suspended solids. It is what it sounds like. It's a measurement of the solid content of the wastewater. Furthermore, we also measure and then charge based on ammonia. And ammonia, like BOD, also depletes oxygen and is a cause for increased treatment at our treatment plant. So when we look at all the loadings coming into the treatment plant, we essentially balance the proposed budget with the loadings and the flow, and then allocate those costs down to all the users of the system. And we've actually broken out and shown what Pfizer versus Graphics, what their increases are, and they're anywhere from 22% increase to a negative 4 or 5% increase, just based on that loading allocation and essentially what that is. I'd say the average increase, and I got to be careful with this because depending on how their waste stream characteristics are, that average value doesn't really replicate what their build value would be. But average increases for those two customer classes are in line with the average increases for all customer classes. So essentially, to conclude my response was just to again verify that there's no customer that's getting a break. Everybody was analyzed, and all customer classes are receiving essentially the same increase of cost. And we'd be happy to share that 2020 rate report with anybody that would want to see it.
Thank you, Director Baker. Any other questions for Director Baker? So just a nutshell, so the system is not built, I just want to clarify this, in that, for example, the neighborhoods are subsidizing the cost of downtown businesses.
No. In fact, there's no, we look at in-city, out-city. So those are two different customer classes. There are 22 neighborhoods in Kalamazoo. There's no differential of those 22 neighborhoods. You're either in-city or you're out. And then in terms of commercial, there's all different meter sizes. So you've got 5/8 meter, 3/4 inch meter, 1 inch meter, 2 inch meter, all the way up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inch meter. Now you can imagine somebody on an 8 inch meter is going to be contributing a whole lot more flow, and those charges are based on that. Those readiness to serve charges, and then in terms of commodity rates, what actually goes through that meter, those are essentially the same within customer class. So you have either in-city or out-city. Again, we do not designate downtown as an independent business jurisdiction or independent jurisdiction within the municipalities. We have either in-city or out-city. You have your meter size, which is clearly shown in there, and then we call right out contract customers, Graphics, and Pfizer. And those customers are unique because they pay for quality. That's a constituent of the wastewater, as well as the flow.
Thank you, Director Baker. Any discussion? Welcome, Commissioner Cunningham. Seeing no more discussion, Clerk, thank you, Director Baker.
Thank you.
Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next are reports and legislation. Deputy City Manager, do you have a report?
No report tonight.
Thank you. City Attorney Robinson, any reports?
No, Your Honor.
Clerk Borling, any
No, sir.
reports? All right. I guess I will ask you one question here. I hope you're prepared for that, but we do have an election coming up on March 10th, correct?
That's correct.
And how can people take advantage of that opportunity, starting right now?
Starting right now, if you're registered to vote in the city and you are ready to cast your ballot, you can get an absentee ballot, and you can do that by contacting my office. We can send you the request form. You can come to the clerk's office and actually get your ballot. If you're prepared, you can vote it in the office and leave it with us, or you can pick it up and take it with you. That's your choice. If you live in the city but you're not registered to vote, now's a good time to do that too. And you can do that online, actually, at michigan.gov/vote. If you have a Michigan driver's license or state ID. If not, you can come to the clerk's office, register. You can fill out a mail-in form that's also available at that michigan.vote address. But now is perfect time to do that.
Thank you, Clerk Burley. So could people drop off their ballots right here at City Hall then?
Correct. If you have an absentee ballot, you can mail it in. You can also drop it off in person.
Thank you so much. Next on our agenda is the opportunity for citizen comments. Anyone wishing to address the City Commission on any topic can come to the podium, give your name, and whether you live in the city, you'll have 4 minutes to make your comments, and you can please sign in before or after, whatever's convenient.
Hi, I'm Nehemiah Scudder. I live in the city at 345 North Burdick. I'll sign in as soon as I finish speaking. I'd like to put down a few more comments on the Western Student Association, and I hope I won't be interrupted. Basically, they're elected by a very small proportion of the students. They said they had about 1,000 votes out of 21,000 students. That means they are one out of 21 is maybe 5% roughly, something like that. And the thing is, they get their votes from the fraternities and sororities. The fraternity leaders say everybody's going to vote, and they do so. That gives them 50 to 100 votes from the fraternities that do that. That swamps all the other students who don't vote at all because they know it's useless. And basically, they don't represent Western. They represent the fraternities and sororities. They call people, those fraternities and sororities, call people like me GDI. And I apologize for the profanity, but it stands for goddamn independent. And most students fall in that category. They're not fraternity and sorority people. They're GDI, and they're proud of it. Many of them live in the Pine Street neighborhood. There are other areas adjacent to that, collectively called the student ghetto. And the WSA does not represent these people. It represents the fraternities, sororities, and a very, very small fraction of other people. And these do not represent Western students. So I would ignore them if I were you, and go to President Montgomery if you want comments about Western. As I said before, the students have their opinion that the WSA is just a rubber stamp for the administration. It'd be better to go directly to President Montgomery instead of going to the WSA, and you'll get the straight dope. Well, I went to a meeting of the gun club at Western out of curiosity. President Montgomery was there, and he said that students could not carry guns, not even if they have a concealed weapons permit, whereas all the Western student police could carry guns. That's a dangerous situation, it seems to me. Basically, students can't shoot back if the police open up on them. Well, gun carrying is a controversial issue, and we get in from President Montgomery that the administration decided that students can't have guns. I think that's too bad. They have practical purposes to prevent robberies and things like that, and they aren't allowing that now. Anyway, you won't get issues like that from the WSA. They're just punks. Sorry.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Devin Loker. I represent the refinery. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and thank you to our council members who have met with our local stakeholders to understand some of the market realities and how important it is that these facilities be allowed to apply for adult use licenses immediately. We will continue to work with the city and the staff on developing a comprehensive social equity plan that promotes minority ownership of the new adult use licenses. But we ask that the city please adopt a resolution allowing currently operating facilities to apply and move forward to attempt a successful business. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Welcome.
Good
Hi.
evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, all city staff. A couple of things. One, I was just reminded why I've always been a fan of Director Baker. Definitely love his support and the great work that that department does with our water and our water quality. And even you all and the due diligence that you do on behalf of all of us. So my name is Stephanie Moore. I live at 414 West Patterson Street, a proud homeowner on the north side of Kalamazoo, and even more a humbled advocate, definitely an advocate for District 1 within Kalamazoo County. I'm coming to you tonight, Mayor and Commissioners, because of a problem that we continue to experience in our urban community, and that's when many vehicles travel at a high rate, reckless driving throughout our neighborhood in some of the most vulnerable parts of our community, where we have seniors, children, families, and even our public schools at the very end of Cobb Street. And just about a week ago, some late night activities were going on that caused major damage to North Glade Elementary School on Cobb Street. There was some property damages to homeowners. The police were called, 911 calls were made. And unfortunately, the response time hasn't been in a manner where these individuals can be apprehended, addressed, and justice to be served on behalf of the folks in that community. So I'm coming back again tonight, one, really not asking, I'm demanding that we deserve more and we deserve better. Our folks in our community deserve to be protected. Our property, we deserve a response time that is adequate, and we deserve follow-up to make sure that these individuals who continue to do wrong in our community, in our neighborhoods, which are impacting our children, be dealt with in a swift manner. I have a constituent on Woodward Street who continues to call. I have met with the assistant chief Coakley. We've had many conversations, and we have great conversations, and we have a clear understanding. But Deputy City Manager Moore, I think we need to have a conversation with the folks at the top of the food chains that make the decisions, that approve the strategies, that are creating the policies and the laws that are going to adequately deal with this. This has been years in the making. Had this not been in an urban community where there are more vulnerable people, that I don't think that this would have gone on for the many years that it continues to go on. Notice I did not call this activity by name because I refuse to give this demonic spirit any more power than what it has. But we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. This has to stop. Whether if it's nice outside, if it's raining, snow, or shine, these individuals who do not live in our neighborhood, who continue to wreck our neighborhood, cause havoc, trauma to our children and families in our neighborhood, this has to stop immediately. So I'm willing to come to the table, offer whatever resources, information, support, the hood if I need to help you all, help us figure this out, but please don't leave us alone to deal with this situation with individuals who are not from our community, who don't live in our community, they're not vested in our community, yet they are causing so much wreckage that it's really hard to deal with. From our car insurance rates, to our home ownership, to property damage, to the beautification, the safety, and the viability of our neighborhood. We really want to work with you to address this, but we're over conversations. We're looking for strategy, action, and resolution. Thank you all. Continue to do your good work. I'm proud of all of you, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Moore. I didn't see you out before when you came in. I do want to recognize that a county commissioner is here. Thank you so much for coming to see us this evening. Appreciate it. Next, please.
Hello, I'm Jody Dozman. I reside in the city of Kalamazoo. I've been coming up here for a while, talking about being homeless, talking about troubles I had at Stadium Drive Apartments. I would much rather come up here with ideas for recycling, sewage relief, rats in the system, things like that. It would be, I was at a point where I said visible and invisible. So what is visible is there was a wreck on the corner on a Sunday. The people had at Stadium Drive, so the wreck on the corner was addressed by all the EMTs or police. Okay, so I drove by with a bed in the truck with this lady past that whole crew. During the stay at Stadium Drive, she had a double-edged blade in the hallway held by a friend of hers that I've had troubles with and had addressed Fred Upton's office with it. Leads me to the stuff that's invisible, like how spots on the floor could be removed by one management and not another, or one maintenance guy and not another. It doesn't seem right to me, but they could be removed. So it's not a deposit problem. And things like what's going on with the carpeting and where is it dispersed to, how is, just a lot of things with the receipts and things going on with maintenance men, John particularly, because he's the one who witnessed me being pushed by this lady who gets away with many things. You know, my daughter was a witness to a lady saying that she was having troubles with Judy, and Judy told her not to go to the court thing unless she was subpoenaed. And there's been other communications with her with what Judy had tagged her on. So, you know, I have future plans to have fun and do nice things if I can keep control of my emotions with the pestering and the things going on. It's very difficult. I don't get much help from some of these groups that I go to, but I'm hoping things will get better. There's tagging games going on and people are fearing, and there's obvious situations to that. You know, maybe I can come up here someday and write up good recycling ideas and turn that in and have some fun with it. Neighborhood watches, like for the children to have weather booths that are lit up, and dead-end streets with the trees removed so they can be seen. You know, not because people track all kinds of things in housing, fencing areas at cemeteries and dark places. You know, especially when they're out to steal something, I notice they can track really well. And things happen with the weaker people. So where it goes, I'm not sure, but I hope to get
Thank you. Next, please. Seeing no one else, at this time we'll hear from any commissioners. This is the time. So please come to the podium. You'll state your name and whether you live in the city, and you'll have 4 minutes.
Hi, Commissioners.
Afterwards, if you could, I'm sorry to interrupt, you can sign in over
there. Yeah,
here.
sorry. My name is Margaret Wilson, and I do live in the city. I'm here today as a follow-up to a piece of communication that I sent to you all this weekend about the blight ordinance that was adopted in April of last year, and particularly the sections that expanded the definition of blight to include occupied residences. That's Chapter 21, Sections 30 and 31. I'm particularly concerned about this ordinance because it is profoundly impactful for low-income homeowners and pretty much no one else. I think that it has a really chilling effect on the relationship of neighbors to each other and neighbors to the city. It's only triggered by a complaint, and so it serves the lowest common denominator of neighborhood relationships. And it's applied unfairly because of that. I think that as Kalamazoo grows and the downtown core becomes more developed and more affluent, which it has been, which is wonderful. You know, I give kudos to you guys for your great city planning and helping that part of the city really grow and become the greater density that we need to meet our housing needs. But as those high-rise luxury apartments look down on the core contiguous neighborhoods that are full of modest, very old homes, what is their interpretation of blight going to be? As it's written, nearly every home in my neighborhood is blighted. I walked to school with my daughter this morning. I counted 95 homes, and just as I walked by, 65 of them could visually be identified as having at least one characteristic of blight, which is what is required to have a citation for blight and to be considered a blighted property. The fees associated with such a designation are greater than ones associated with a housing code violation, and they increase exponentially. So the first citation you get costs you $200. If you haven't remedied in 6 months, or if you have a further citation for a different blight, it doubles, and it doubles, and it doubles. 200, 400, 800, 1,600. This is extremely burdensome to low-income homeowners, especially when you live in a housing stock that is virtually impossible to meet the standard. The standard includes peeling paint, a crack in your foundation, vermin-proof. You have to be vermin-proof. It's impossible to make an old house vermin-proof, and it applies not only to your primary home, it includes outbuildings. Many of the outbuildings in the older neighborhoods were originally horse barns. Even some of the ones that were built in the 50s have dirt floors. Vermin-proof is an impossible standard to meet. So you have taken the thing that has been promised to low-income people as the path to intergenerational wealth, and you have given it an impossible standard to meet to be successful in doing that. So I thank you for your time and consideration of this, and I really look forward to working with you and city staff further. And a couple of my cohort from the Vine Neighborhood Association are going to come up and talk, and I want to also just add that East Side Neighborhood Association has similar feelings and is in agreement with the letter that I sent to you, and members of Stewart have also had similar feelings about it when I talked to them about it, even though the whole association hasn't met to review it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
My name's Jeremy Turpinning. I'm a resident 913 Osborne. I come to speak tonight about the blight ordinance as well. I feel that this is something that could be easily misconstrued or used against individuals of little or no means. As a representative of the community and myself having a home that does not meet all structural and or blight certified criteria, I could easily be turned in by a neighbor or by another individual that has some vengeance or other motive. And it's not that I feel that the city and their actions would take it upon themselves to take it into their control and make this happen, but it would be easily swayed that an inspector doing their job would have to make such recommendations as putting a citation on a home for something as small as paint or siding. And a specific instance has come from a neighbor on the street in which I live, and their home, within close proximity to the person that reported them, has a piece of missing siding, which according to the blight ordinance is in issue, and it brought up other details of their home that also would contribute to the blight. But not even 20 feet to the left of their home is the person that turned them in, and their house in all likelihood is a possible condemnation case, where it's easily seen that that was a weaponization of this very small innate rule, page 330 somewhere. It's something that once found out, turned against a neighbor, is something that I feel is very unjust and that would be easily misconstrued to allow others to alienate not only neighbors, but the city in their capacity. And I feel that by rewording, revising, and possibly looking at other criteria, we would do well by our neighbors, our community, and our city standard to address this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Eric Stuckey. I'm also a Vine Neighborhood Housing Committee representative. I live on Vine neighborhood as well. I thought I'd talk a little bit about my background. I am a carpenter by trade. I am worked as a tradesman in many other trades. I'm currently running a building trades vocational program for KPEP. So I have a lot of experience with these old homes and with windows and siding, what have you. My house itself is 150 years old. I do have peeling paint. I do have windows that are failing. I do have cracks in my foundation. I do have all of these things. Any one of these things, as the code is written, could be a $200 fine for me tomorrow. And that could double, and it could double and double. I've lived here 5 years. I have all the tools. I have my own scaffolding. I have my own ladders. I have all the know-how and all the tools myself. I've been working 5 years on the home. I've been making steady improvements. That doesn't count for anything according to the way the code is written. Therefore, I'm putting myself at risk by coming out and admitting this in a public meeting because they might be knocking on my door tomorrow. But I feel like that's an important point to make because it used to be that materials were the big cost. And materials for a home like this can be expensive. You're talking about windows that have to meet a historic code. Marvin makes a pretty good one. There's some other wooden windows. Even Anderson has an okay one. But you're talking about hundreds of dollars per window for your basic model. And that goes up depending on the width and the height. Okay, so these expenses can be big. But labor is a huge cost. Not everybody has the ability that I have to do that labor themselves. And that's where the money really is. And so as my neighbors and companions here are talking about the potential burden for homeowners in particular under the way that's sort of, I'm not exactly sure how it's gone with they've clumped blight in on this and taken it out of the housing code or how that exact change was made. But the way it's written is really challenging for a person who's a homeowner who wants to live in the community. I think in short, there's 3 separate pieces that need to be addressed in terms of blight. You have your vacant blighted properties that no one's living in. You have your blighted properties, which are income properties. And then you also have your occupied homeowner that may be blighted or have blight characteristics. And I think within blight itself, there needs to be a distinction between all 3 of those because how you apply a vacant home to someone who's living in a home, those rules have to be different. There has to be some consideration for people like ourselves who are making improvements steadily and doing everything we can. And I could talk and talk and talk, but I know you guys are here late every night doing this stuff, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming down. Next, please.
Hello, how everybody doing? My name is, my bad, I'm sorry. My name is Israel McCurtis. Originally from the Edison neighborhood, currently WMU student. I just had a quick concern on the, about streetlights. Originally, being from Kalamazoo, there's a lot of things that happen on the Stockbridge Edison neighborhood at night, and like I have a little brother, and he be telling me like he be scared to walk home at night from school, and like I used to have to walk with him every day. But I just want to know, is there anything like we can do to get more streetlights? Because like I used to have to walk from work. I used to work at the library over there. What's it called? It's right over there by the Family Dollar. Washington Square Library. I used to work over there. I used to have to work every single night, Monday through Friday, in the dark. It used to be like one street light. So that's it. I'm just trying to see if we could get some like more street lights just for my little brother and stuff like that, and also for, you know, other younger kids in the neighborhood that got to walk by themselves because it's nobody there to walk with him. He by himself. So that's all, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please. Yes, is there someone?
Hi, my name is Sarah Ruggles. I live at 623 West Cedar Street, and I currently serve as the board chair of the Vine Neighborhood Association. And I have a few comments as well in relation to the blight ordinance. Defining blight, as the code currently does, as an enforceable offense to include occupied residential structures, not only would seem to contradict the city's stated intents of the blight ordinance, which are to ensure the safety of residents, to protect properties, and to specifically address abandoned and condemned structures throughout the city, but to levy fines disproportionately on the poorest and least white neighborhoods of Kalamazoo for often merely aesthetic and often subjectively determined violations according to the code as it is written, inevitably creates a textbook example of disparate impact of financial burden on classes protected by fair housing statutes, and a textbook example of structurally racist policy. Unfortunately, these concepts rarely appear in textbooks. It is also particularly difficult to navigate and likely to incur outsized repair expenses for residents of historically designated neighborhoods, such as mine. According to city data, the largest number of code complaints occur in Edison, Northside, Vine, and Eastside neighborhoods. Neighborhoods, as we know, with concentrated populations of people of color and of people struggling with poverty. On behalf of the Vine neighborhood, I urge a revision of Chapter 21, Article 4 of the City Housing Code of Ordinances to alleviate and prevent the negative impacts that this code creates for occupied residential properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening during citizen comments? See no one. Now is the time to hear from commissioners. Is there a commissioner who wants to make a comment this evening? Commissioner Cunningham.
First off, please excuse my tardiness. To my colleagues and to the community at large, I was caught on the highway during this snow, so afterwards, please be safe getting home. In regards to what Commissioner Moore brought up, I won't give it power by naming it also, but I know that we worked on some ordinances last year, I think maybe during our, well, let me rephrase that. I advised during our retreat that's coming up next month that we get an update to see how those strategies may or may not be working. Maybe we can solicit some more community input and engagement for that dialogue. And what was the other thing? Oh, we lost a legend in our community, someone who was very near and dear to a lot of our youth who are now adults, someone who was actually very near and dear to our city administration, as her husband was the first African American on our police department. Miss Juanita Goodwin, who is a legend and a staple in this community for her servitude in the school system. It was interesting to see one of my cousins who said, yeah, that was my teacher, and he's my age. And then I heard my father say, well, that was my I believe, school counselor. So just want to send prayers on behalf of the city to that family, let you know that we are holding you up before God as you go through these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham. Anyone else? Commissioner Pradel.
Just wanted to thank Margaret, Jeremy, Eric, and Sarah for coming and lifting this up. I also appreciated your correspondence over the weekend, sharing this with us as well. You know, I think it's important that we hear these sort of things that people are experiencing firsthand on the ground. Kind of want to echo that with Israel, who came tonight as well. I really just admire people who take the time out of their busy schedule to share a challenge that you're seeing that could make a difference for people. And in your case, you know, what you saw firsthand and what your brother is still experiencing. And so thank you for looking out for him, and thank you for lifting that up. Devin, you brought up again your concern about waiting till June for our marijuana owners here in town, and I just wanted to just let you know I did meet with the 6 local owners last Thursday, had a chance to have lunch with those individuals and just kind of get their perspective and hear some of their ideas and challenges and whatnot, so I really appreciated their time for a lengthy lunch. And then just Commissioner Moore, thank you again for bringing and elevating the issue as well. I have 2 boys at home who regularly wake up at about 2 or 3 times a night just on their own fruition, and I don't think there's too much noise going outside of our house, but I can't imagine if I was a young parent and, you know, had the noise and racket going outside of my house and the fear and concern I had going on, and what that would cause for my young boys and my family. So definitely hear you, and definitely willing to be a willing partner with anybody who wants to take that on. So thank you.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had a reaction to the issue regarding the blight ordinance. It definitely seems to me that we could improve the impression that ordinance gives. It seems that's way off the mark. And I am beginning to understand the distinction between the housing ordinance and the nuisance ordinance. And it seems to me that, from what I'm gathering, I need to understand why this, this ordinance applies to occupied homes. So I hope that through working with the staff, we can, and the city attorney, I can get some clarity on this. I'm sure the rest of us are interested in that too. So keep our feet to the fire, and we'll see what we can do. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is when we talked about wastewater rates, Director Baker said that there are 2 large corporations in town that do get special treatment. These are Pfizer and Graphic Packaging. This special treatment that they get is for water quality, which is bad quality, okay? They pay extra for their wastewater quality. Using the word quality is maybe not exactly the right word, because that has good connotations, but what comes from Pfizer is loaded with what they call a BOD, and it has lots of suspended solids in it. So that puts an extra burden on the city's wastewater plant. In fact, that whole plant was designed largely, when it was upgraded, to take care of all the heavy BOD loading that then Upjohn was sending down. So believe me, Pfizer for sure, and I believe Graphic Packaging as well, are paying for their share of the load on the city sewer. So I just wanted to give you a little background on that. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Anyone else?
Yeah, so I just wanted to second what the commissioners had said up here as far as Commissioner Moore, thank you for speaking up about those issues that are going on. I'm interested in finding out what measures were done and what that looks like and what can be improved. I'm also interested in finding out ways, it sounds like some of this may be concentrated, so maybe there's a way to deal with a specific area, and so there shouldn't be response times. If you know something is happening, maybe there could be someone there during those times. I'm not sure, but I'm interested in checking into that further. I do want to thank everyone who came and voiced their opinion on any issue that was going on. That's how things get changed. That's how things get done. And so I really appreciate everyone coming to speak up, and particularly on the blighted situation. I do appreciate getting those emails, but then having you guys speak up. Sometimes, a lot of times, things aren't necessarily, you don't think about all of these different areas, and it's not necessarily bad intentions, but that's what this is for. Having citizen input, feedback, say, hey, where did we get it wrong? Where did we get it right? Where do we need to improve? So I thank you for that. And last but not least, as Commissioner Cunningham already acknowledged, Mrs. Juanita Goodman, who's very, very dear to me. She was the first Black woman principal at a middle school here at Hillside. And her visitation is going to be on the 20th from 5 to 7 at Harper Funeral Home. Her funeral will be on the 21st at 11 at Galilee Baptist Church, and she will definitely be missed.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Griffin. Commissioner Hess.
Just a brief shout out to Commissioner Griffin, Vice Mayor Griffin, I'm sorry, for her work with the city and city officials and others to bring Chapter 18 updates to the light. And I look forward to our public working session next Monday to learn more about that and as we move that ordinance forward. And just as if it's snowing out, just another reminder to keep our sidewalks shoveled for those who are pedestrians in the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. I want to once again thank everybody for coming down tonight. Appreciate that very much. And a couple things we do talk about that are so important. Demonstrate your community caring by getting out and shoveling your walk and maybe somebody else's. That's so important. This has been a kind of a strange winter this year, and sometimes if you don't get that snow cleared off right away, it turns into impassable ice, which lasts for a while. So please, I implore you to demonstrate your community responsibility by shoveling walks adjacent to you. And lastly, Vice Mayor Griffin and I attended an event at Galilee Baptist Church last night, which is a recognition for families who have had family members who've been lost to gun violence. And I just want to remind all of us that the work that we need to do, not only support families who have suffered that kind of traumatic loss in town, but more so continue to create a community where everyone feels that there are opportunities for them, and that those opportunities are available and supported, and people are included, and so that we don't often find ourselves in a situation where maybe the only opportunities that people feel like they might be involved in is settling their disputes through violence. With that, we are adjourned.